Now, today's main story is coming to us from B in Crypto. And of course, we're going to be talking about the European Union's new 5, this is the 5th, is what this stands for, AMLD, Anti-Money Laundering Directions. So this is pretty significant, and I think it's very important for everybody to understand this as they're looking for future trends. Now, the EU has updated their anti-money laundering regulations, and they're coming to effect January 10th in Europe. And it's known as 5 AMLD, or the 5th Anti-Money Laundering Directive. And the new rules directly address crypto companies for the first time ever officially by the European Union. And it looks set to have a pretty large impact on our industry. Now, this 5 AMLD was first detailed in May of last year, and European Union member states are going to be required to implement the amended rules in their national laws in less than 1 month. And the crypto space is buzzing with the implications of what is inside these documents. Now, the rules, for the very first time in European Union history, define what is meant by the term virtual currency. And it is defined by 5 AMLD as, and I quote, a digital representation of value that is not issued or guaranteed by a central bank or public authority, end quote. So the incoming regulations are going to be requiring custodial services they're going to require that those offering custodial services for virtual currencies to abide by the AML regulations laid down under the preceding 4 AMLD, meaning that those who are offering, companies that are offering custody solutions for cryptocurrency investors are going to have the same requirements as traditional financial institutions in regards to performing customer due diligence, as well as submitting suspicious activity reports on their customers to regulators. Now, what this means, obviously, is that exchange platforms, cryptocurrency exchange platforms that are currently offering services within the European Union are going to have to begin submitting information about customers to the relevant authorities, and they're going to have to start performing due diligence checks on user activity that they deem suspicious or that the regulators deem suspicious. Now, of course, 5 AMLD is also said to significantly increase the power and authority of the Financial Intelligence Unit. The FIU, the Financial Intelligence Unit, will now have the mandate to obtain the addresses and identities of token holders who are conducting business on exchanges that are offering services to European members. Now, European citizens. Now, how this will be achieved is not explained yet, as it's still unclear how it could possibly do this. Nonetheless, the FIU is being granted expanding authority to begin investigating the cryptocurrency space. Now, the impact on the industry could be absolutely dramatic. As Larry Cermak from The Block pointed out in a Twitter post, giants of the exchange industry such as Binance and OKEX will now have to comply with the new regulations or cease offering services within Europe. Now, Binance, of course, in particular, being one of the most popular crypto exchanges in the world, thanks in part to its reasonably high withdrawal limits without requiring KYC, 2 Bitcoins per day, they would need to overhaul their own policies, directly affecting a large part of their user base. So no longer 2 KYC free Bitcoin withdrawals. That would be not allowed under this new regulation. And remember, Binance and OKEX are based in Malta, which is a member of the European Union. So if they choose to not change their policies, they need to choose to move from Malta. Now, I don't actually know, and please, somebody tell me if they do know. I'm going to be reaching out to some individuals to get some clarification on this later. But my question here is, if Binance chooses to remain in Malta, can they choose to no longer offer services to citizens or citizens of nations that are members of the European Union, and they can continue to offer their services to citizens of nations that are not members of the European Union without changing their KYC requirements, or just by dint of them existing in Malta, a member state of the European Union, they will be required to offer those same, they will be required to operate under those 5 AMLD requirements for all citizens, regardless of what nation state. Because if it is the latter, then this is absolutely dramatic. And that means that, yes, no matter what, Binance is going to have to move away from Malta, because how much of their user base could these exchanges potentially stand to lose for individuals that are utilizing Binance for their 2 Bitcoin KYC free withdrawals every single day? Not free, but KYC free withdrawals every single day. That's a huge portion of the user base. And it would be a large portion of that could be gutted overnight with this regulation. Now, Binance obviously faced a similar dilemma earlier this year when they saw the exchange pull out of the United States markets abruptly before they launched Binance US, a much less and reduced but regulatory compliant company and platform for American users. Now, of course, other crypto businesses have already shut down as a result of the incoming 5 AMLD changes. BottlePay, for example, stated last week that the new regulations would make it impossible for them to continue offering their social media tipping service in a way consistent with their current operations. And rather than compromise, the business announced that it would cease operating at the end of the year via a press release. Now, other businesses such as SimpleCoin and ChopCoin have also made similar announcements. Now, although the incoming regulations are certainly going to change the way that European cryptocurrency companies operate, some seem to be embracing the change. A representative of the Exmo digital asset trading platform wrote in a Medium post that the new rules would provide greater certainty, something that many businesses serving the space have been eager for in recent years. Now, similar to what we covered in our reporting on Monday, this is a question of whether or not greater regulation in the space will ultimately help the industry mature, or in layman's terms, make Bitcoin number go up and boost adoption, particularly among institutional players, right? And we have, again, 2 big sides of the coin on this. Coin one is generally concerned with the price of Bitcoin, and they're like, listen, we want that number to go up. We want to make money off of Bitcoin, and we're going to need regulation to do it. And we need to get it in. But also there's more to that, because listen, the idea that, think of any financial instrument out there. To get this into users' hands, it has to be regulated. And unfortunately, traditional finance owns and operates the current system of regulation and introduction of financial instruments to citizens. And it's an okay price to pay. It's a sacrifice that must be made to put the instrument into individuals' users' hands, because they're not going to change what Bitcoin fundamentally is. It's still going to be unfungible, uncensorable at its core, at the code base. It will only be with the use of the systems that are set up, these third-party systems, that will make it censorable and unfungible, things like that, right? You won't be able to directly censor the Bitcoin blockchain. You will be able to go after people outside of it through social engineering. So, and some people say that, putting that into their hands would still allow you, individuals who are educated, to go and utilize Bitcoin the way that it was intended to be. And that is going to create the groundswell, because then all you need, once this is in people's hands and they're used to using it in this unregulated way, and it becomes illegal to use Bitcoin the regular way, sort of, kind of, right? Then what you can do is, all you need is an increase in government totalitarianism and, a rise of public sentiment against the government and the traditional financial institutions, or the dollar, or the Federal Reserve, or the current system of, the financial structure. And then you have people beginning to en masse go outside of the system and use the system illegally, of course, because all things that, change laws are illegal at first. Things that are generally outlawed by the government either remain illegal, are changed later, or end up being a reason why a government is overthrown. We've seen this throughout history over and over and over and over and over again. So, that's a really good case to be made there. Or is it that no regulation, we're going to go it alone? I find that hard, that we're going to have no regulation on Bitcoin. I think that ship has kind of sailed. I think that, obviously with the platforms that are coming in and the institutions that we already have and the legislation that's being passed, this is a good example. We're not going to get through this without regulation on cryptocurrency. The question and the conversation that we need to have right now is, what side of that conversation are we going to be on? So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and comments and opinions on this. Please, this is a very important issue. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions down below. And if one of you can answer that question for me, I'd highly appreciate that as well.